I never thought a single line of code could destroy a billion-dollar company. But then again, I never thought the people I trusted most would try to erase me from history either. My name is Richard Thompson, and what I'm about to tell you happened to me 6 months ago. It could happen to you too. Because in corporate America, loyalty is a one-way street, and your biggest achievement can become your greatest vulnerability. Let me take you back to where it all started. TechNova Corporation, 42nd floor, downtown Seattle. Glass walls, open concept, the kind of place where they serve kombucha on tap and call pizza parties team building. I'd been there 6 years, working my way up from junior developer to senior software engineer. 34 years old, married to Sarah, father to 7-year-old Emma, who still believed her daddy could fix anything. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday. I remember, because Emma had a school play that evening, and I'd promised Sarah I'd leave early for once. But there I was, staring at my monitor at 11 p.m., surrounded by empty energy drink cans and the ghosts of another missed family dinner. The algorithm I'd been developing for 18 months finally clicked. Not just worked, clicked. Like watching puzzle pieces fall into place and fast forward. The AI optimization system I'd built could predict supply chain bottlenecks 3 months in advance, automatically reroute resources, and minimize waste across our entire client network. I ran the numbers 5 times before I believed them. Conservative estimate, $3.2 billion in annual savings for our Fortune 500 clients. My hands were shaking as I saved the file. That's when I noticed something strange in the legacy code. While integrating my algorithm with the existing infrastructure, I found what programmers call a backdoor, essentially a secret entrance built into the system. Someone, probably a developer who'd left years ago, had created administrative access that bypassed all security protocols. It was hidden so deep in the architecture that our security audits had missed it completely. Normal protocol would be to report it immediately. But something made me hesitate. Maybe it was paranoia from working too many late nights, or maybe it was intuition. Instead, I documented the backdoor privately, changed the access credentials to something only I would know, and buried the information in my personal encrypted files. Just in case, I told myself. I had no idea how prophetic those words would be. The next morning, I presented my algorithm to the executive team. CEO Marcus Williams, a silver-haired man who collected vintage cars and talked about disrupting industries, listened with the intensity of someone watching money multiply in real time. CFO Janet Morrison kept asking me to repeat the savings projections. CTO David Chen nodded like he understood, though I could tell from his questions he was lost after the first 5 minutes. "Richard," Marcus said, leaning back in his leather chair, "you've just saved this company. Hell, you've revolutionized our entire industry." Within a week, I was the golden boy. Company-wide email announcing the breakthrough. Department meetings where managers I'd never spoken to suddenly knew my name. A corner office with actual windows. A luxury in our open concept hellscape. The algorithm went live 3 months later. Client retention shot up 30%. New contracts flooded in. Our stock price doubled. Forbes called it the billion-dollar algorithm. And somehow, I ended up on the cover of Tech Week magazine, looking uncomfortable in a suit Sarah had bought me for the photo shoot. "Finally," Sarah said, cutting out the magazine article for our refrigerator. They see what I've always known. You're brilliant. Emma traced her finger over my picture. Daddy, are you famous now? Just a little bit, sweetheart. Does that mean you can come to my soccer games? The question hit harder than it should have. In my pursuit of professional recognition, I'd missed most of her games, her school plays, her bedtime stories. Success, I was learning, had a price that compound interest couldn't calculate. Marcus started inviting me to executive dinners. Richard, you're family now, he said one evening at some upscale steakhouse where the menu didn't list prices. We take care of family at TechNova. I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. The warning signs started small, a Tuesday in November, when I arrived at my usual 7 a.m. to find someone else in the conference room I'd booked. My keycard access to the server room suddenly required additional authorization. Meetings about my algorithm happening without me. Budget constraints, David Chen explained when I asked about being excluded from the Q4 strategic planning session. We're streamlining attendance to essential personnel only. Essential personnel. 6 months ago, I was revolutionary. Now, I was apparently optional. Then came Jennifer Walsh. She arrived on a Monday morning with the kind of confidence that comes from expensive business school and family connections. Blonde, sharp-suited, carrying herself like she already owned the place. Marcus introduced her as a strategic consultant, brought in to optimize our current systems and identify expansion opportunities. Jennifer will be working closely with all department heads. Marcus announced at the all-hands meeting, she's here to help us scale our recent successes. After the meeting, Jennifer cornered me by the coffee machine. Richard, right? The algorithm genius. I'd love to pick your brain about your work. Maybe we could schedule some one-on-one sessions. Something in her smile felt wrong. Too practiced, too hungry. Sure, I said, because what else could I say? The session started innocuously enough. Jennifer asking technical questions about the algorithm's architecture, taking notes on her iPad, nodding in all the right places. But her questions grew more specific, more probing. She wanted to understand not just what the algorithm did, but how it did it. The underlying mathematics, the decision trees, the source code structure. I'm just trying to identify potential vulnerabilities, she explained, when I asked why she needed such granular detail. Risk assessment for the board. 3 weeks into Jennifer's tenure, I was working late again, a habit that had returned despite my promises to Sarah, when I heard voices from the conference room. Marcus, David, and Jennifer, their conversation drifting through the allegedly soundproof glass walls. The transition needs to be seamless, Marcus was saying. Clients can't sense any disruption. They won't, Jennifer replied. Once I have complete documentation, we can implement the changeover gradually. And Richard? David's voice, uncertain. Richard will be taken care of, Marcus said, but the algorithm needs to belong to TechNova, not to one person. That's too much risk concentrated in a single employee. My blood turned to ice water. I crept closer to the conference room, my heart hammering so loud I was sure they'd hear it. How soon can you replicate his work? Marcus asked. Give me another month of knowledge transfer sessions, Jennifer said. I'm already 70% there. The remaining 30% is just optimization tweaks. And he suspects nothing? Richard's a brilliant engineer, Jennifer laughed, but he's naive about corporate politics. He actually thinks this is about risk assessment. I backed away from the conference room, my hands shaking. 6 years of my life. 6 years of 60-hour weeks, missed family dinners, and sacrificed weekends. And they were planning to steal it all and throw me away like yesterday's code. That night, I couldn't sleep. Sarah noticed me tossing and turning, but when she asked what was wrong, I couldn't find the words. How do you explain that your greatest professional achievement is about to become your pink slip? The knowledge transfer sessions continued, but now I participated with the grim awareness of what they really were. Jennifer, extracting every detail of my work, documenting my methods, reverse engineering my innovations. I started giving her incomplete information, subtle errors that would take weeks to identify. But I knew it was just buying time. The end came on a Friday in December. Marcus's assistant, Linda, called at 4 p.m. Richard, Marcus needs to see you in conference room A. 15 minutes. Conference room A, the formal one, with the mahogany table and the view of Elliott Bay. The room where people got promoted or fired, where careers lived or died. I knew which one this would be. Marcus was there when I arrived, along with David, Janet from HR, and someone from legal I didn't recognize. The setup was unmistakable, an execution squad in business attire. Richard, please sit down, Marcus said, his voice carrying none of the warmth from our family dinners. I remained standing. Let me guess. Performance issues? Marcus looked surprised that I'd skipped the pleasantries. Richard, this is difficult for everyone involved, but we've made the decision to restructure the engineering department. Your position is being eliminated. My position, I repeated. The position that just made you billions of dollars. The algorithm belongs to TechNova, Janet from HR interjected, consulting her folder. As per your employment contract, all work product created during company time belongs to the company. Of course it does. I looked around the room at these people I'd trusted, these people I'd called family. And Jennifer Walsh? What's her new title going to be? The silence was answer enough. We're prepared to offer a generous severance package, Marcus said. 6-month salary, continued health benefits, and a positive reference. How generous, I said. 6 months to find a new job while you profit from 6 years of my work. Richard, David finally spoke, you're a talented engineer. You'll land on your feet. Will I? After you've blacklisted me from every major tech company in Seattle. That's paranoid thinking, Marcus said, but I caught the glance he exchanged with legal. They had me sign the termination papers right there. NDAs, non-compete clauses, intellectual property transfers. My life's work reduced to a stack of legal documents. Security escorted me to my office to pack my personal items. 20 minutes to clean out 6 years, supervised like I was a criminal. As I walked past Jennifer's temporary office, I saw her at my algorithm's codebase, making modifications. She didn't even look up. The drive home was the longest 23 minutes of my life. How do you tell your wife that the promotion you'd been expecting turned into unemployment? How do you explain to your 7-year-old daughter that daddy's company didn't want him anymore? Sarah was in the kitchen when I walked in, Emma's math homework spread across the counter. She took one look at my face and knew. They let you go, she said. Not a question. I nodded, setting down my cardboard box of personal effects. 6 years reduced to a stapler, some family photos, and a coffee mug Emma had made me in art class. Will we be okay? Emma asked, looking up from her addition problems. Of course, sweetheart, I said, though I had no idea if that was true. Our mortgage, Emma's private school, Sarah's medical insurance through my job, Everything depended on my salary. The severance would last 6 months if we were careful. After that weekend, I watched TechNova's press release on the morning news. TechNova Corporation announces revolutionary breakthrough in AI optimization, developed by our talented engineering team. My name wasn't mentioned once. 6 years of my life, erased like a file deleted from a hard drive. But they'd made one crucial mistake. In their rush to claim credit for my work, in their eagerness to erase my contributions, they'd forgotten something important. They'd forgotten about the backdoor. And as I sat in my living room, watching them celebrate their theft on television, I realized something that would change everything. The most important part of the system, the part that made it all work, belonged to me. They thought they could erase me from the record. They thought that by removing my name, they could claim my achievements. But what they didn't know was that I'd built a kill switch into their billion-dollar empire. And I was the only one who knew how to use it. Monday morning, I was going to show them exactly what happens when you try to delete the wrong person. The weekend passed in a haze of unemployment applications and financial calculations. Sarah tried to stay optimistic, talking about new opportunities and fresh starts. But I could see the worry in her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. Emma kept asking why I was home so much, and I kept making excuses about vacation time. Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that press release, about Jennifer Walsh sitting in my office, about Marcus Williams calling me family while planning my execution. Around 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and went to my home office. That's when I remembered the back door. I'd buried the documentation so deep in my personal files that I'd almost forgotten it myself. But there it was, encrypted and hidden, waiting like a loaded gun in a drawer. The master access key to TechNova's entire system infrastructure. The skeleton key that could unlock every door, bypass every security protocol, override every safeguard. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. This wasn't just about my algorithm anymore. This backdoor connected to everything: payroll, client databases, financial systems, even building security. The original developer had built it as an emergency access point, probably never imagining it would survive 6 years of system updates and security audits. But it had, and now, only I knew it existed. I spent the next 3 hours mapping out exactly how deep my code had penetrated TechNova's infrastructure. The algorithm wasn't just a standalone program. It was integrated into every major system: supply chain management, client communications, financial forecasting, even HR databases. Over 18 months of implementation, my work had become the nervous system of the entire company, and I had the power to sever every nerve. The moral implications hit me like a physical weight. Shutting down the system wouldn't just hurt Marcus and Jennifer. It would affect thousands of employees, millions of dollars in client contracts, pension funds that held TechNova stock. Innocent people would suffer for the sins of a few executives. But then I thought about Emma asking if we'd be okay, about Sarah's brave smile hiding her fear, about 6 years of my life erased like I'd never existed. They'd made it personal. Maybe it was time I returned the favor. Monday morning, I called in sick to my job search. Instead, I drove to a coffee shop downtown, far from my house, far from TechNova, somewhere with public Wi-Fi and no security cameras pointed at my table. I ordered a large black coffee and opened my laptop. The back door was still active, still undetected, still mine. I didn't shut down the system immediately. That would be too obvious, too traceable. Instead, I began implementing what programmers call a degradation cascade, subtle errors that would compound over time like a virus designed to destroy itself slowly. The beauty of the algorithm was its complexity. It made thousands of micro decisions every second, optimizations so small that no human could track them individually. If those optimizations started failing at a rate of, say, 0.1% per day, it would take weeks before anyone noticed. And by then, the system would be so corrupted that rebuilding would be impossible. I started with the most obscure functions, the deep-level processes that only I fully understood. A variable changed here, a calculation adjusted there. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would trigger immediate alarms. Just enough to plant seeds of destruction. That evening, Sarah found me staring at my laptop in the kitchen. "Any luck with the job applications?" she asked, kissing the top of my head. "Still working on it," I said, which was technically true. "Richard." She sat down across from me, her expression serious. "I know this is hard. I know they treated you terribly. But we'll get through this together, okay? We always do." I closed the laptop. What if they never face consequences? What if they just get away with it? "Then we build something better," she said. "You're brilliant, Richard. You don't need them to prove that." I wanted to tell her what I was planning, wanted to explain that sometimes brilliant men have to become dangerous to protect what they love, but some burdens are too heavy to share. Instead, I kissed her forehead and promised to come to bed soon. The first signs of system degradation appeared on Wednesday. I monitored TechNova's public communications obsessively, watching for any indication that they'd noticed the problems. Their client portal showed minor efficiency drops, nothing alarming, well within normal operational parameters. Jennifer Walsh had been promoted to lead algorithm engineer, according to the company newsletter. Her LinkedIn profile now listed her as architect of TechNova's revolutionary AI optimization system. The theft was complete. But thieves, I was learning, make terrible guardians. By Friday, the efficiency drops had reached 3%. Still explainable as normal variance, but trending in the wrong direction. I imagined Jennifer in my old office, staring at performance metrics and trying to understand why the numbers weren't matching her projections. The weekend brought news that made my blood boil. Marcus Williams had been featured in Fortune magazine as CEO of the Year, credited with visionary leadership in AI innovation. The article mentioned my algorithm without mentioning my name. According to Fortune, the breakthrough was the result of collaborative team effort and strategic investment in emerging technologies. Collaborative team effort. 6 years of my life reduced to corporate buzzwords. That's when I stopped feeling guilty about what I was doing to TechNova's innocent employees. If the company could prosper by erasing its workers, then maybe those workers deserved to know what their leadership was really like. Monday morning brought the first real panic. I was monitoring TechNova's internal communications through the back door when I saw the emergency meeting notification. All department heads, conference room A, 9 a.m. urgent. I couldn't attend in person, obviously, but the beauty of a backdoor is that it opens every door, including the conference room's digital recording system. The algorithm efficiency has dropped 8% in the last week, David Chen was saying, his voice tight with stress. Our biggest client is asking questions we can't answer. 8%? Marcus's voice, sharp with anger. How is that possible? The system was stable for months. "We're investigating," Jennifer said, but I could hear the uncertainty beneath her professional calm. It could be a data corruption issue, or maybe some kind of integration conflict with recent updates. "Fix it," Marcus snapped. "I don't care what it takes. We have the Yamamoto Industries presentation next week. If we lose that contract—" "We won't," Jennifer promised. "I just need time to identify the source of the problem." Time. That was the one thing she didn't have. Because while they were scrambling to understand why their billion-dollar algorithm was failing, I was implementing the next phase of the degradation cascade. The client-facing optimizations began failing at an accelerated rate. Supply chain predictions became unreliable. Resource allocation algorithms started making contradictory recommendations. By Wednesday, efficiency had dropped to 12% below baseline. TechNova's stock price dipped for the first time in 6 months. Client complaints started flooding in. The IT department was working overtime, chasing ghosts in the code. That's when Jennifer called me. I was in my home office, watching their digital world burn, when my phone rang. Jennifer Walsh, according to the caller ID. "Richard," she said, when I answered, her voice artificially warm. "I hope you're doing well. I know the transition was difficult, but I wanted to reach out about a consulting opportunity." "A consulting opportunity," I repeated. "We're experiencing some technical challenges with the algorithm implementation," she continued. "Nothing major, just some optimization issues that could benefit from your expertise. We'd be willing to offer a very generous consulting fee for a few days of your time." I almost laughed. They'd stolen my work, fired me, erased my contributions, and now they wanted to pay me to fix what they'd broken. "What kind of challenges?" I asked. "Performance degradation. The system isn't operating at peak efficiency. We think it might be related to some of the deeper architectural decisions you made during development." Deeper architectural decisions. She had no idea. "I'm flattered," I said, "but I'm pretty busy with my job search right now. Maybe if the compensation was significant enough?" "How does 50,000 sound? For a week of consulting?" 50,000. More than they'd offered in severance. Desperation had a price, apparently. "I'll think about it," I said, and hung up. That evening, I found Sarah reading in bed. Emma, asleep beside her after another nightmare about Daddy being gone forever. "Jennifer Walsh called," I said, sitting on the edge of the bed. Sarah looked up from her book. "Your replacement." "Former replacement. She wants to hire me as a consultant. 50,000 for a week's work." 50,000? Sarah's eyes widened. "Richard, that's incredible. Why would they offer so much?" "Because they're desperate," I said. "The algorithm is failing, and they don't know how to fix it." Sarah closed her book, studying my face. "Are you going to help them?" I looked at Emma, peaceful in sleep, trusting that her father would protect her from the world's cruelties. Then I looked at Sarah, my partner in everything, the woman who'd supported my dreams even when they consumed our family time. "They made their choice," I said finally. "Now they have to live with it." By the end of the second week, TechNova's algorithm was operating at 35% efficiency. The stock price had dropped 18%. 3 major clients had threatened to terminate their contracts. The business press was starting to ask questions about the sudden instability in TechNova's flagship product. Internal emails, which I continued to monitor, painted a picture of complete chaos. Jennifer was working 18-hour days, bringing in outside consultants, even flying in specialists from MIT and Stanford. None of them could identify the source of the problem because none of them understood the system like I did. Marcus was furious, threatening heads and demanding answers that didn't exist. The board was asking pointed questions about the company's technical leadership. Rumors circulated about potential acquisitions, vultures circling a wounded giant. And through it all, I maintained my distance, my innocence. Just another unemployed engineer, definitely not the ghost in their machine. Friday afternoon brought the call I'd been expecting. Not Jennifer this time, but Marcus himself. Richard. His voice was strained, exhausted. We need to talk. Hello, Marcus. I heard through the grapevine that things aren't going well. Cut the shit, Richard. You know exactly what's happening, and I think you know how to fix it. I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating it directly. You did something to the algorithm before you left. Some kind of sabotage. I let the silence stretch for a long moment. That's a serious accusation, Marcus. I hope you have evidence to support it. We both know evidence doesn't matter here. What matters is that you're destroying something you helped build. There are innocent people involved, Richard. People with families, mortgages, responsibilities. Funny how you didn't mention innocent people when you were stealing my work. This isn't about credit or recognition anymore. This is about thousands of jobs, about client trust, about a company that took decades to build. A company, I said, that forgot the value of loyalty. Name your price, Marcus said, desperation bleeding through his executive composure. Whatever you want. Money, position, recognition. Just fix this. I thought about Emma's college fund, decimated by my sudden unemployment. About Sarah's stress, hidden behind supportive smiles. About the years I'd sacrificed for a company that had discarded me like obsolete hardware. My price, I said slowly, is for you to publicly acknowledge what really happened. Full credit for my work, a public apology for the way I was treated, and compensation for the intellectual property you stole. Done, Marcus said immediately. Consider it done. How soon can you start? I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. That night, Sarah found me on our back porch, staring at the Seattle skyline where TechNova's building stood like a wounded giant among the other towers. They called again, she said, settling into the chair beside me. I nodded. Marcus this time. He's offering everything. Full recognition, public apology, financial compensation. That's what you wanted, isn't it? Justice? Is it justice if I have to save them from their own greed? If I have to fix what they broke to get what they owed me all along? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. What does your gut tell you? My gut told me that some lessons could only be learned through loss. That sometimes, to kill a cancer, you had to be willing to damage healthy tissue. That Marcus Williams and Jennifer Walsh and everyone else who'd participated in my erasure needed to understand that actions had consequences. My gut tells me, I said finally, that they made their choice when they decided I was expendable. Now they get to live with it. The third week brought total system collapse. The algorithm wasn't just underperforming, it was actively making harmful decisions. Supply chains snarled, client relationships crumbled, stock price free fell. TechNova's board called an emergency shareholders meeting. Internal communications spoke of fundamental technical failure and investigation into potential sabotage. The Seattle Times ran a front-page story about the mysterious collapse of a tech giant. But the most satisfying news came from an unexpected source. Several former TechNova employees reached out to me directly. People who'd witnessed my contributions, who'd seen the erasure happen, who were finally ready to speak publicly about the company's treatment of its workers. "Richard," said Tom Martinez, a former project manager, during our coffee meeting downtown, "what they did to you was criminal, and it wasn't the first time. There's a pattern here, and people are starting to notice." By Friday of the third week, TechNova had lost 60% of its stock value. Major clients were fleeing. Jennifer Walsh had been placed on administrative leave. Marcus Williams was facing calls for his resignation, and in the middle of the chaos, something beautiful happened. Former employees started going public with their own stories of exploitation, credit theft, and corporate betrayal. My situation wasn't unique. It was systematic. The local news picked up the story. Pattern of employee exploitation at troubled tech giant. The Seattle Times followed with an investigative piece. The human cost of TechNova's innovation. Finally, my name appeared in print again. Not as a footnote or a redacted line item, but as the architect of the billion-dollar algorithm that had built TechNova's empire. Former colleagues confirmed my contributions. Documentation emerged. The truth, like water finding its level, began to flow. Monday morning of the fourth week, I received an unexpected visitor. Marcus Williams himself, standing on my front porch at 7 a.m., looking like he'd aged 5 years in 3 weeks. "Richard," he said when I opened the door, "we need to talk." I let him in, led him to my kitchen, poured 2 cups of coffee. He looked around at my middle-class suburban home, so different from the executive restaurants where he'd once called me family. "You won," he said simply. "The board met yesterday. I'm stepping down as CEO. Jennifer's been terminated. The algorithm project is being shuttered. And the thousands of innocent employees you mentioned, we're exploring acquisition options. Someone will buy the assets, probably keep most of the staff." He sipped his coffee, studying my face. "Are you satisfied?" Am I satisfied that justice was done? That actions finally had consequences? Yes, Marcus, I'm satisfied. You destroyed everything we built together. No, I said firmly. You destroyed it when you decided I was disposable. I just helped the destruction along. He set down his coffee cup, his hands shaking slightly. For what it's worth, Richard, I'm sorry. What we did was wrong. It was, but apologies don't erase years of exploitation. They don't restore trust. They don't undo the damage. Marcus nodded, looking older than his 63 years. The FBI is investigating the system failures. They'll probably want to talk to you. Let them investigate. They won't find anything illegal. Bad code isn't a crime, Marcus, and neither is refusing to fix someone else's mistakes. After he left, I sat in my kitchen, watching the morning light filter through my windows. Emma would be waking soon, Sarah making breakfast, our life continuing in this house that we'd managed to keep despite everything. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Mr. Thompson, this is Lisa Chen from Innovate Systems. We've been following your story in the news. Would you be interested in discussing a CTO position? We believe in recognizing talent and treating people with respect. Then another. Richard, Jim Morrison from Pacific Tech. We'd love to talk about opportunities. And another. By noon, I had 17 job offers, 3 interview requests, and 2 investment opportunities for my own startup. The industry had taken notice of TechNova's collapse, of the story behind it, of the engineer they'd tried to erase. That evening, Sarah found me in my office, reviewing the offers. "This one looks promising," she said, reading over my shoulder. "Innovate systems, full creative control, equity stake, and they're specifically mentioning ethical treatment of employees." "It's a good offer," I agreed. "They all are." But I leaned back in my chair, looking at the newspaper clipping Sarah had framed. The Seattle Times article that had finally told the truth about my contributions to TechNova's success. But I keep thinking about all the other engineers out there, the ones who don't have backdoors, who can't fight back when companies try to erase them, the ones who'll suffer what I suffered because they trusted the wrong people. Sarah sat on the arm of my chair. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking maybe it's time to build something different. A company that does things the right way from the beginning, where talent is recognized, where loyalty works both ways, where people can't just be deleted." Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Daddy, are you still famous?" I pulled her onto my lap. "A little bit, sweetheart. But more importantly, Daddy learned something important." "What?" "That sometimes, when people try to erase you, the best revenge is to become impossible to forget." 6 months later, Ethicorp Technologies opened its doors with 15 employees, all former victims of corporate exploitation. Our first client, a lawsuit against TechNova for intellectual property theft, which we won in a settlement that funded our expansion. Jennifer Walsh never worked in tech again. Marcus Williams took a golden parachute and disappeared into retirement. And TechNova's assets were eventually sold to a consortium that included, ironically, my new company. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was the industry-wide conversation about employee rights that my story had sparked. The legislation proposed to protect worker contributions. The cultural shift toward recognizing that talent can't be erased, only temporarily ignored. Emma still has that Tech Week magazine cover on her wall, but now it's joined by newer articles. "The Engineer Who Brought Down a Giant." "Building Ethics in Tech." Richard Thompson. From Victim to Visionary. Sometimes people ask if I regret destroying TechNova, if I feel guilty about the collateral damage. The answer is simple. You can't destroy something that was already broken. I just helped people see the cracks, and in the end, that's all any of us can do. Shine light on the truth and let justice find its own way home.